Hey guys, this is going to be the intro to this video. Unfortunately, the original intro I had accidentally deleted when I was at the rock truck on site. So this rock truck, Volvo A25D, blew a hydraulic hose, or was dumping hydraulic oil on the ground, and I pulled the skid pan down, and from pump number 1 underneath the engine, the supply hose going to the control valve had blown. And looking at the other pump number 2, that supply hose was also leaking, and even the load sense line was leaking, so coming from the pump. So we're going to get into changing all 3 hoses, and yeah, let the games begin. Forgot to mention, this video doesn't stop at just the changing hoses. Unfortunately, this truck had issues, and after changing the hoses, we had to do some diagnosing. So stick around the end of the video to see what kind of issues this rock truck had and how I fixed it. Alright guys, floor's out, and the hoses run from the pumps underneath the truck going to the control valve here. One hose here, only one of the hoses is actually split, but we're going to change the 2 while we're in there. They run beside each other, and the other one is looking like it's starting to chafe on other hoses. And actually we're going to change a smaller load sense line as well from the pump. So, and it is something dusty out here. I can't put the camera on the ground because there's so much dust. I'll show you what's going on out there. Hose. This one wasn't leaking, but definitely not far from. So we'll change that while we're in here. I don't want to do this twice. I'm sure my customer doesn't want to do it twice. Alright guys, got the hoses out. 3 of them. One of them, here's the leaking one. The other ones were, this one was starting to chafe through somewhere down at the bottom, and same with this one. So these hoses got the skid pans, half the skid pan down on the bottom. These hoses come from the pumps. One pump here, one pump over there. They go straight to the control valve. Plus, with these Volvo rock trucks, I will say that these skid pans, they swing down on either side, so you don't have to bring the whole pan down. You don't need to use your crane or a jack for anybody that's worked on a Cat rock truck, you know those 740 pans suck, bringing them down. But the cab tilts, and cabs don't tilt on a Volvo, so they all got their plus and negative side, I would say. But I tried to order Volvo hoses. Volvo won't be able to make these hoses for 4 days to get parts, to get the fittings. So we're gonna try a hose shop. I really don't want to use a hose shop, but we don't have much choice, so let's go get them made. All right, guys, we're back at the rock truck. Everybody's gone home, gone for the day, but we're still out here. That is a usual occurrence as being a field mechanic. So we got these hoses made. Volvo wouldn't be able to make them for 3 days. I would have preferred to get them from Volvo, but the hose shop had the fittings, which I'm always a little nervous using hydraulic hose shops for some hoses. You know, I always believe there's a time and a place for a hose shop. Usually hoses you could easily access that aren't run through tight areas, through clamps, through you know, making all sorts of bends, and the timing or the clocking of the fittings on the end as well. There's nothing, maybe not Volvo, but Cat has it figured out pretty good for, you know, part numbers, order your hose, and the hose is always pretty much perfect. And when you go to put it in, there's a big difference. That big difference in whether your hose is going to fit or make your life hell. I've had D8 dozers when you change the steer hoses on that they want to use an aftermarket hose or a hose shop, mobile hose guy, and he'd make the hose and then it wouldn't fit, and then he'd put adapters on, it wouldn't fit, and we'd have ratchet straps pulling the hose together, and just a nightmare. And then you have to buy a Cat hose anyway because it doesn't fit, or the bend is too tight, or something's not right. So that's my experiences with hose shops. That's just my 2 cents. I avoid them when I can. I use them when I know it's going to be all right. I usually have to babysit the guys and make sure that they put the right code flange on. Sometimes you get hoses made and you're all excited, you get to site, you run the hoses in the machine, and then you go to put the clamps on and you realize that they've used code 61 or code 62 flanges and they mix it up, and they don't realize, you know, you just got some kid making the hose. But it costs you a ton of money when that happens. You just came back to site, you ran the hose, and now you've got the wrong hoses, and they've already made them and built it. Now you got to go to the dealer and get the right hose, or you take it back and argue with them, but that usually doesn't go well. So just my 2 cents. Hopefully these hoses go in properly and fit right, and I think they will. I think they'll work. So let's get to it. All right, guys, if it looks like I've been rolling around in the dirt, it's because I have, and it's dusty, and I'm glad nobody's working. Saves the dust from rolling in, other than what I create walking. Dusty. So I got the hoses in, all 3 of them. They're all tied up and in their spot, tight. So all we got left is we're gonna put the floor pans in, the seat base, and skid pans. We'll top up the hydraulic tank. And we'll fire it up and we'll see. Make sure there's no leaks. Alright, you got the skid pans up. I wish Cat could have learned from Volvo, or maybe Volvo made them this way, because Cat skid pans suck. These skid pans are great. They're just they're on hinges and they actually swing down. This swings down that way, and that other side swings down. You can get at the pumps. And the skid pan, there's actually a chain and a little slot for the chain to hang on. So when you put the skid pan back up, you just hang it on the chain and you can get your bolts in. And it's light, it's not as heavy. Those Cat rock truck ones are... Those Cat rock truck ones, you gotta use a crane and a strap, or I bring my transmission jack. And yeah, just a whole lot of extra work. So yeah, seat's in, the base is in. I wrestled that in. I'm gonna leave these mats out because I have a feeling this little airline, this little push connect fitting down here, the plastic piece broke off on the collar and it doesn't lock in too well, so if that leaks, we will fold the airline for the meantime, give the operator something to complain about. But I don't have those push connect fittings, so we'll get some hydraulic oil in the tank, fire it up, see if that seat leaks, make sure there's no hydraulic oil, of course, leaking, and finish it up. Pretty nice night. It's nice working in the evening when nobody else is out. It's quiet. Alright, hydraulic tank is full. It took every single pail here to get it to just below the max mark. That'll do for now. They can top it up tomorrow. 120 liters, so the tank's probably 140 to 160. Pretty low on oil. I wonder if it stopped steering and they realized what was happening, or somebody seen the trail of oil. Quite a trail there. So covered the inside of the wheel, and yeah, let's fire it up. Guys, check out these strobes on the tail lights on the bottom bumper. They're 4-inch Buyers. I think they're called multi-function tail lights, or 5. They have reverse lights built in and they have strobes built in, and they are just bright. Those things get people's attention when you're on the side of the road. I turned them on once when I was pulled over, and a truck was coming up behind me and he swerved into the ditch. Not exactly what they're supposed to do, but it scared the shit out of him, I think. Alright guys, that's it for the Volvo. That was a busier day than I was expecting, because I did a hose on a roll-off truck that was also a pain to get to. So did that this afternoon, and then the Volvo blew that hose around 1 o'clock, and I've just been on it since. It's about 9:30 now, I think, and I'm just going home. So that's it. All right, just check the oil level, transmission oil. It is under the battery box cover over here. It's in there, and it is good. So we're gonna fire this rock truck up and let's see what it's doing. So far the truck goes into gear in reverse. I don't see or feel anything abnormal, other than when I hit the brake pedal there's a warning light that comes on, the stop light. Not sure if we're losing brake pressure or something, but brakes seem to work fine. And I think I'm going to call the operator and see if that brake issue, if that stop light was on before they had any transmission issues. We're gonna take the truck for a drive, I guess, and get it warmed up and see if the condition changes once it's warm. Something doesn't feel right with the steering. the Volvo I haven't been filming my checks, but the and when I was driving it, I noticed the steering is really kind of jerky. Not bad, but it's not smooth. It's not as smooth as it should be. And I talked to the operator and the foreman here on the site, and he noticed it as well. Another thing I noticed is the hydraulics are really squealy when you turn. Like there's a really high-pitched squeal, and it sounds like it comes from the cylinder. And I greased all the pins, the hitch. Everybody's been greasing it consistently. There's, it's not a pin. So I decided to pull the floorboards out because there's a check valve where the hoses go onto the control valve, your steering hoses from the pump. And I'm not sure so this is actually the machine I changed the hoses out on, and I'm starting to wonder if we've got some shit from the lines when they cut it stuck in the check valve, causing the squeal, or something doesn't sound right. I'm gonna pull the lines off, pull the check valve out, have a look at that, and I wonder if something's traveled into the load sense as well, because the load sense goes through the pump and it goes through a torque limiting valve, and the torque limiting valve destrokes the pumps when the idle drops below 1,000 RPM. And the fact that they said that the truck was stalling, it would stall out on them and shut off, that tells me that torque limiting valve, something going on there, which could be related to this whole, we have the steering issue. The truck hasn't shut off on me at all. I've been test driving it, haven't been able to get it to act up, so we're gonna try and chase the steering issue and see what the squealing is. I'll take a video of the control valve when I'm turning here, and you guys will get to hear it. So I'm gonna say it should not sound like that. And these hoses that were made, they're about 10 feet long, and I'm wondering if they didn't run a puck through them to clean them out after cutting them. And we've got stuff jammed up somewhere. This really is a pain in the butt, having to take this truck back apart and chase this issue. And the dealer couldn't make the hoses for 3 days, but maybe it would have been a better choice at this point. So, alright, so I just swapped the check valve from the steering line going to the control valve. I swapped it with the dump box check valve. I didn't see anything wrong with it. The spring felt good. I didn't see any bits inside. I also pulled the load sense line off going to the pump. Then I blew it out. Felt like there was a bit of shit in there, honestly, but let's fire it up and see if the steering still makes that loud squeal. Alright, let's fire it up and try it out. Alright, so I just ran it after swapping the check valves. from body dump and raise to the steering, and I'm starting to wonder if it was, so I just fired it up, tried it. It's not making the loud squeal anymore. I am wondering if it was the load sense line that I blew out, if it had a piece of junk in there or something blocking load sense through the pump, and maybe that was why the engine would stall out randomly if that piece is going through, getting stuck. Not really sure. I did change that line yesterday, so it's possible that bits of the hose was in there after they cut it. They don't blow them out. And yeah, I think I'm going to probably put the seat in and we'll drive it and see how the steering feels, or I might drive it with no seat if it'll let me. Alright, we're going to try and drive it, see what see if there's any difference, if it steers smoother or what than before. It felt like it did there when I fired it up. See if it'll let me drive. I don't have any seat on. Feels smoother now. Still feels something though. We're going to check pump standby pressure. There's two pumps, pump 1 and 2, and they both supply your steering and your hoist oil to the control valve. Your steering takes priority, so let's fire it up and we'll read the standby pressure on the pump at idle, and let's see what it reads. 3,000 psi to me does not seem normal for standby pressure, so that pump is just being loaded up consistently. The pressure's going up to 300 psi and then it's dropping back down to 3,000. And with the load sense line, we're going to disconnect the load sense line and let's see if the pump de-strokes. And if the pump de-strokes, then I would say we have an issue in the control valve somewhere with steering or something. So let's disconnect the load sense and see where it reads. Alright, so we got the load sense line coming from the control valve going to pump 1, disconnected and capped. We're going to see if that de-strokes the pump, because right now the pump 1 is standby pressure it sits at like 4,000 psi idling, and if you rev the truck up it'll jump up to 5,500 psi and remain there and stay. So this pump is holding its stroke, and I think load sense is telling it to. So let's fire it up and see what the pressure gauge reads with it capped. Yeah, so we're holding 3 to 500 psi standby pressure, which would be normal at idle, no function. Good. Look how foamy that oil is coming from load sense line, from the control valve. I've never seen oil that aerated on load sense anytime I've pulled load sense lines off. So here on the schematic, I went in for, on the load sense circuit, there's a couple, they call them non-return check valves, and there's a few orifices right here on the load sense drain, one here, and there's 2 inside the block. And I didn't get it on video, but you have to pull some fittings out, and they're actually deeper in the block. They come out like a snowmobile jet. Very small Allen head screw, and one of these orifices were plugged up, and that load sense line is the drain back to tank. So hopefully we've cleared it up, and hopefully the load sense goes back to normal and the pump's de-stroke, and hopefully the steering issue is fixed. So let's fire it up and see. No load sense signal, and the truck is running, which is perfect. That's what we want to see. No function is activated. There shouldn't be any load sense telling the pumps to stroke up. So let's turn the wheel and see how it steers. should see. And hopefully, I think I'm going to put this rock truck back together and we'll take it for a drive, make sure. But yeah, standpipe pressure is good. Whereas before it was going to 4,000 psi, sometimes up to 5,000 psi. I would see it sit there and hang at 5,000. So let's put this rock truck back together and we're going to take it for a drive. All right, cab's back together. It's all clean. And we're going to take it for a drive. Curious, I noticed an immediate difference just on startup there, so I think it's going to be good. We'll take it for a drive and let's see how it drives. So much smoother. That feels 100% better. Yeah, this feels way better. Definitely fixed. But, this feels normal. No more squealing from the control valve either that I don't hear. So this is going to be the ending of the video for the Volvo rock truck. It definitely was a weird issue. Funny that, you know, you can change 3 hoses and discover either the truck had an issue prior or came up with an issue, you know, at the time of having the hose blow, or even possibly from changing hoses. There's a really small orifice inside the load sense block. You had to pull a plug out an Allen head screw, and then down inside the block there was an orifice, and it came out like a jet from a carburetor, very small, and the orifice like looks like it's equal to like diameter of your hair. It's tiny, and that was preventing load sense from draining back to tank. So it would explain why the hose, you could shut the truck off and the load sense was staying pressurized. When you go to take the line off, it just had nowhere to go. It couldn't go back to tank. So anyway, enough chatting about that. Let me like and subscribe and comment what you think kind of about the issue, and it sure is an interesting one, and I'm sure there'll be many more to come up. So have a great day, guys. Thanks.